Alright everybody, today we're doing the top 5 knives that make me happy or bring me the most joy or whatever. I know I'm super late to that train that everybody's been on with that themed video, but you know, everybody is curious, likes seeing. I loved watching everybody else's videos on them, so you know, this is mine. So we're gonna go right into it. It's gonna be a long video because there's a lot of knives and some stories, some fun stories, so stay with me because they are some really good stories that you will enjoy. You will enjoy some of these stories. There's some good ones. Alright, some funny ones. First off, we're going to go with this guy. This is the Cold Steel two-handed machete with the butcher blade. It's got a model number, I don't know, I don't care. It's no longer in production. I really wish that they would bring it back. So that I could buy a handful more, so that would guarantee me to have one for the rest of my life. That would be amazing because I do love this guy. It brings me so much joy and pleasure when I use it for two main reasons. One, when you're carrying this thing around and using this thing, it's scary as hell. From as an outsider's appearance, especially if you're not used to seeing people swinging machetes, it's scary as hell. It's a very zombie apocalypse type tool, looking tool. So that in itself makes me love it and brings me joy. The other bit is the fact that, you know, I've used machetes since I was really young. My dad always had me go out and use a machete to take care of certain things around the house and whatnot. He would have one and I'd have one, and we'd go at a project, at a task together. But two-handed, the fact that you've got the extra distance between the blade and where you're holding it, you know, all that distance is a very nice safety measure. But the greatest part about that is the fact that you can get so much more in your swing. I mean, your impact on whatever you're chopping or whatever you're cutting with this, you can just get so much power behind a huge swing with having that big long handle and that nice butcher block blade, which is still a very thin, I mean, it is machete, so it's not a very thick blade. But yeah, I mean, you can just do so much. It's insane how much stuff you can take care of with this kind of a machete, and it's almost mind-blowing, and what makes it even more of a joy to use, because you can do so much and it makes it so easy just because of the design of it. The fact that it's a two-handed machete with a long handle it just makes it an awesome machete, and I love it. It's my favorite machete, always will be. So the next thing is a fixed blade, a smallish fixed blade. It's like roughly a 3-inch blade. It's made by a company called White River Knives. They're made in the US here. I have a separate video on this guy, and so please watch that. I know it's a much older video, but please watch it, and watch some other YouTubers' videos on this knife, because I swear that there's nothing, absolutely nothing that I can complain about. Everything about this knife, all of its features, the materials, the kayak sheath, everything about this knife is just top notch, and it's not an insane price either. So definitely recommend, if you like the idea of having and using a small to medium sized fixed blade on you on a regular basis, or just having one. This thing lives, and it's not on me, it's in my car, so it's real close to me whether I'm at home or out somewhere. So yeah, use the heck out of this thing. It's a beautiful knife, and it just brings me so much joy in the fact that there's nothing about it that I dislike at all. As nitpicky as I can be, it's an amazing, a stellar, well done, everything about it. Alright, next one comes with a fun story. Is this guy. It's all wood except for the little brass pins that are keeping it together. There's no liners, there's no washers. It's just wood with two brass pins holding it together. Very simple, very basic little folder. And it's 100% wood. The blade itself is wood. Yeah. So what I love about this thing and why it brings me so much joy and I can't stop chuckling right now is because of the story that comes along with it. Got it at a craft fair when I was a kid back in 1994, I believe. I'm guessing because it says Trail 1994 on it. So I got it, and despite everybody in my family and my closest friends saying, no, it's a bad idea, please don't, my stubborn foolishness did it anyways. I took this sucker to school with me, and not just took it to school, but I brought it with a purpose. Yes, show and tell. Friday, show and tell, in like kindergarten or first grade or whatever it was. I was young. I brought this to school for show and tell, a folding knife, and everybody knows that you could not do that nowadays. Absolutely could not do that without getting kicked out of school, at least for the day, if not suspended for a length of time, or even quite possibly expelled, even with it being just wood. I mean, it would be a major no-no, whereas back then in the early mid-90s, it was more just a hard slap on the wrist, and one of your parents had to come in and get it. So, yeah. Oh boy, was I dumb and full of myself on thinking that I could get away with taking that for show and tell. So I love it just for that. It's just got a fun story to go with it, and yeah. Alright, next one is a common classic camping Boy Scout, Cub Scout folder. This one was done by Camillus, and just about anybody in the knife community is going to know this knife and knows it pretty darn well. A handful of other companies did it, but it has the official knife Boy Scouts of America on the blade there, and it's got the emblem on one of the scale pieces here. But the reason why I picked this guy out as one that brings me joy and I love is because I just know I got this as an award for popcorn sales for Scouts. If anybody knows what that is, you do. If you don't, sorry. But yeah, I got this for selling popcorn, and I carried it for probably a good 6 or 7 years straight as my main knife, my main tool, and it went everywhere with me, to school, and back to home, campouts, traveling, going anywhere. If I left my room, this guy was probably 90% of the time in my pocket. And so I love the fact that it brought me so much joy and pleasure using it and having it on a regular basis for so many years when I was a young boy. And so that's why it's on that list. Alright, the next one is another kind of laughing matter. Ha. No, not really. This is the Rough Rider massive 8-inch plus blade folder that they did for the brand's 25th anniversary. And this brings me joy in the fact that it is what it is. It's a glorified piece of memory commemorating 25 years, the first 25 years of Rough Rider. And it's just fun because it's huge. It's great because fit and finish all around wise, they did an amazing job. It's a well done knife, and the spine work on the back here is pretty. It's very, very pretty. Note to self: I need to add some more knives with some fun spine work to my collection in the future. But yeah, this is just a great piece, a timepiece for being in a collection and for memory's sake, and just being a joy to have, to own in a collection. So that's its purpose. Alright, the next one has a really cool story for me as well, and that is, I mean, it's just a standard classic, the SD Classic, but it's the print that's on this one. This Smoky Mountain Knife Works did this, and it's the Bigfoot print. So here I got a larger sack for the sake of, again, collection keepsake. But the SD Classic, I got this, and I got a second one for my dad. Gifted the other one to my dad for Father's Day a couple years back. And the reason why is because for him and me, it's the Bigfoot theme is a very heartfelt memory, cherished memory for the both of us, from a wonderful story, a fun story of when I was in Scouts on a camp out. It was a weekend camp out for Halloween. It was Halloween weekend, and us kids, we were probably around 7, 8 years old. And on the camp out, it was Halloween weekend, so the fun theme of Halloween was in the air. And my dad had brought something along to play a fun little joke. My dad is a very fun, lighthearted guy, a bit of a jokester, and enjoys creating fun memories with all his practical jokes. So Bigfoot popped in because some kid saw a footprint in the mud there in the woods and mentioned Bigfoot, and then ghost stories being told around a campfire later that night. The thing was, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, out of the bushes, at the edge of the field we were camped in, came this big, furry-looking, Bigfoot-ish looking gorilla costumed father of mine. And scared a handful of us. I mean, we were all initially scared and jumped up and started running around like crazy. And then it quickly shifted to, let's get it, let's try to capture it. And so we were grabbing sticks and camp chairs and whatever and jumping on it and trying to bring it down. And it did not dawn in my head to think about, okay, who is this in this costume? Because it was obviously a costume once it was close to us. But one of the kids who was off to this, in his tent getting something at the moment, popped up out of the tent while we were all trying to get after this gorilla costumed dad of mine, and just points his finger out and shouts out, "Oh, that's Mr. Brinkman!" And he's like giant paws. Everybody freaks. We all looked at him like, how the heck did he know? I mean, he was at least 30, 40 feet from us in the dark at night, and he just we were all baffled as to how he was able to point out exactly who that was. But then the other funny part was, one of the kids, a close childhood friend of mine, was sitting down and just bawling. He just collapsed. That was his traumatic response to the whole thing. He just broke down, collapsed, and just bawled his eyes out, flowed like a river, crying, tears of fear and overwhelmedness. And my dad came up, he took off the mask and said, Michael, it's okay, it's just me. You know who I am, you know me. And yet this kid, he stopped, sniffled, looked at him, and then went crying again. Went straight back to bawling like a baby. It's just like, come on, dude. So yeah, that must have scarred him for life. But it was a fun event, and is a fantastic memory that I share with my dad, and the fact that he and I both have one of these. I only carry mine for the month of October because of the Halloween camp out when that story happened. But my dad, he keeps on his key ring for his car keys year round, and that brings just a very heartfelt bit of joy to me, knowing that my dad and I share that together. So that's that one. Let me get the last one and before I start crying myself, because that is a very touching story, a sentimental story for me and my father. Alright, this is the Pena X Series Raptor, And this is more of a today's knife, not too old, it didn't come out too terribly long ago. And all of my collection of typical modern today's knives, stuff that I've gathered throughout the last 5 to 10 years. It's hard when you build a collection and you've got more than just a dozen. When you get into the 200, 3, 4, 5, however many hundreds of knives that you end up with for a knife collection over your lifespan, it's hard to sit down and pick any particular one that you're really that fond of. You kind of just you love all of them, otherwise you wouldn't have bought it, or you would have traded it or sold it or whatever to get another one that you think that you would enjoy more. That's kind of how it goes, right? So the big reason why I love this guy and why I pulled this one out of the bunch is because, a lot like the fixed blade here, there's nothing that I can ding on this. Being as picky as I want to, there's absolutely nothing that I dislike or find any kind of minuscule fault in. I love every bit of it. I love the traditional esque look, but yet very, very modern in all the materials, the blade shape. Oh, I love the blade shape, all the swedging cuts and everything. Very great utilitarian blade. The steel M390, micarta titanium clip. The fact that, especially as a lefty, that your frame lock is still yet covered by a slab of micarta scale here, facilitating easier use and as a lefty, and not putting a bunch of pressure on the lock bar. Just everything about it just makes me smile, and I love it. I mean, so far it's probably the closest, and it's not even a semi-custom, but yet it kind of feels like a semi-custom, just because it's so well done, and it's done by a company that typically, thus far, when it comes out with a model, it makes only so many of them. It's not like it's numbered or anything, but they make so many of them, and then they move on. Then they move on to another knife, another design. Make so many of those, and then again and again and again. So it's not like there's only 500 of these. There's probably a couple thousand, but that is it. Once they've been run, they're most likely not going to bring this back. So that is kind of cool in the fact that it's almost a semi-custom, and it's a well done knife, and I love everything about it, and that brings me joy. And it's got a fun name, and that's also kind of just cream icing on the cake. My 4-year-old, who's very into me being super into pocket knives, when I pulled this out of the box the first time, he looks at it and he says, "That's real cool, Daddy. I like that one." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Guess what the name of it is?" And I said, "It's the Raptor." He says, "Oh, dinosaur." He loves dinosaurs right now. He says, "That is so cool, Daddy." And so, yeah, just from opening it up out of the box, I didn't have it in my hand for 2 minutes before, and already created a connection with my 4-year-old and his love of dinosaurs. So, that's what this knife is to me, and always will be, and will definitely be one that I pass on to him out of all of my handful of children. So, yeah. Well, that's it. I know it's an insanely long video. I hope you enjoyed the stories part of it, and enjoyed my picks. And I will see you guys next time. Hit the like, subscribe, watch some of my other stuff, and see y'all later. Bye.